Welcome to my podcast, Shaping Your Journey. My name is Aldo Matza, Artistic Director of Kosa Music, percussionist, and inviting you to join us in our conversations with artists and important people in our music world. Today, we are in Havana during the Havana Rhythm and Dance Festival, La Fiesta del Tambor, and the Kosa Cuba workshop. And we have the honor of speaking with Giraldo Piloto, who is Cuba's top percussionist. He's one of the most important people in the music world here, composer, drummer extraordinaire, and a general force here in Cuba. He's also the artistic director of La Fiesta del Tambor, and we've been working together for the past 20 years in collaborating and helping with the La Fiesta del Tambor and bringing people here and getting the word out to the rest of the world. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure always.
Now, what's interesting is if we look up a name like Giraldo Piloto or whatever, we can always see the history of this person. Tell us a little bit about your history, where you come from, and
okay,
a little bit of your story.
Okay, I come from a very known music family of musicians. Just because my grandfather was a trumpet and violin, he played in the Police National Band in Cuba. My uncles and my aunts also were musicians. I dedicate this festival to my uncle Guillermo Barreto, one of the greatest drummers in Cuba in the last century. But also my mom was a teacher of piano and accordion. And my uncle Roberto Barreto was saxophonist of the Benny Morea Orchestra.
Wow, okay.
And my uncle Ali Barreto was a trumpet player for Tropicana Orchestra. My aunt Lita Barreto was a piano and bass player in the Illusion 60
Okay.
Orchestra. And in my family I got cousin, nephew, and many people who involved in the music, just because I think it is on the roots and on the blood, and it is very nice because when I remember I was very small, very it's small. It's okay.
Small. Yeah.
Small. Yeah.
Young.
But maybe 3-4 year old. I remember my mom and my father listened jazz music in my house, and my mom teach me to put the hands on the piano. But someday they both, my pa and ma, say, "Wow, what happened here?" Because I have 2 pencils, and I was playing drums with the little kitchen of my sister, my younger sister. And my father say, "Wow, we don't have to ask anybody. We know that our son will be a drummer." Okay. I started in the Conservatory Alejandro Garcia Caturla with around 8-year-old. I was very young. They tried to fix some new plan with me because I have the quality to start in the music, but was very young. And later they say, "Wow, I think that we run too fast," because you know the stick, when I try to put it in my hands, the stick fall.
Right,
you know,
right.
I don't have enough strength to hold the stick. And after that, I I stayed in the conservatory as 4 years, 4 or 5 years, sixth grade, and after that I moved to National School of Art. I graduated in 1980, and right away I started playing in Orquesta Tropicana
Okay.
since 1980 to 1987, and that was when El Tosco, José Luis Cortés, created NG La Banda, one of the greatest bands in Cuba in all those years, and he chose me to start with oh, one of the greatest bands all time, NG La Banda. We started in 1988.
Okay.
Uh, After that, I was director, musical director of Isaac Delgado, and in 1995 I started with Klimax, my band, the same band that I got right now, with different concept of the music. We love to play dance music, but also Latin jazz or Cuban jazz. You know,
Right.
it is something that we got in the family about to push uh, everything around us.
Right.
Some families, some projects like Fiesta del Tambor, but also some friends. Why not? You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. You were also, I mean, you're also a composer. So
Yes.
when did that start? You're also you play guitar also.
Yes.
And when did that start?
In the school.
Okay.
In the school, my mom someday asked me, "You don't have anything in your mind about compose any song or something? Do you have some idea?" I say, "Wow, I was very young, but this is a challenge or something, you know." But was like una injection.
Injection. Yes.
Uh, I think that start with I was 11 year old or something. I broke many papers, you know, because the day that I wrote something to me was perfect, but the day after, I say this is nothing. This is not for good, and I broke the paper.
I
I put
ripped
it,
it. Yeah.
yeah, I read it, and I read a lot of paper. I think the first one we started to enjoy something. Maybe was I have maybe I don't know, maybe 18-year-old
Okay.
or something. But too too many songs broken. But it is nice because I understood that I don't have enough knowledge about harmony, and when I compose all those years, composed, I understood that the same melody or the idea that I put it on the paper was not the idea that I got it inside of me, you know.
Okay.
And I am very sure that I grew up harmonically, and after that, I started to be a better composer.
Okay.
You
But
know?
did you study composition?
No,
No, it just came because you took the
yes,
time. Okay.
just because it is a God up, upstairs,
Right, right.
and family and you know inheritance.
Yeah. No, and obviously, I mean, your mother was teaching, and
Sure.
Josefina, who I knew very well, teaching piano and theory
Yeah.
to
Yes.
everyone. Yeah, she was incredible. One person that I never met was your uncle Guillermo Barreto, who apparently was, I mean, he was a genius. He had
And my father was
And your
composer
father, right,
also.
right.
Yes.
In fact, somebody I remember said, "Well, do you know Piloto's father and his writing partner? They were like the Lennon McCartney of Cuba."
Yes,
Yeah. So,
yes,
like many people don't know that. I mean, there's a
yes,
lot of music composition that happened
yes,
in the house, right?
yes. One, a very binomium. It is the real name in English. In Spanish is binomio with two
Binomio. Oh yeah.
composer put it together as one idea, and some of them put it the lyrics, and another one
Yeah.
the melodies, was great because all the greatest artists in the 60s uh, they sang their songs, was amazing because they create boleros, cha-cha-cha, mambo, pilon, Mozambique, something about Latin jazz also,
Okay.
Yes, was very nice and interesting.
Yeah. I mean, so that's a great environment
Sure,
to grow up in,
sure.
and then also then, I mean, you started. You started the band. I mean, we met uh, many. I mean, you already had the band Klimax when we met. I came here and we met and we became instant friends. And I mean, I heard all about you from an old friend in Los Angeles,
Sure.
Chuck Silverman.
Sure, sure.
He was actually originally from Montreal. He was born in
Okay.
Montreal,
Wow.
and then they moved to the
Wow.
States. So we had we had a connection along, and then he told me, if you're going, Aldo, if you're going to Cuba, you must, because I was just going to Cuba for the first time on vacation. And he says, no, you have to find Piloto. You have to know Piloto. So he was living not in Los Angeles. I forget. No, he was in Miami.
No, but the first one, Chuck Silverman lives in San Francisco, I think.
Okay.
Or I think it is some small
Right.
town near between San Francisco and Los Angeles.
Okay.
I don't remember.
But
I remember the cold area. It was
818.
818. Yeah.
Yes.
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 But I remember he said, no, you have to. So I said, okay, send me his number. And then I called you, and we were in Varadero, and you drove out to meet us back then.
Yeah.
And then we started our project, Cosa Cuba,
Okay.
in Cayo Coco.
Yes, I remember.
I think that was the year after
Yeah.
we started. So I said, okay, now I understand. I see what we have to do. And you were there, but you already had your group, Klimax.
Yes.
I remember you had a mustache back then.
Yes. Wow.
Yes. And I mean, you were always a driving force here. You played with everybody, also with Chucho Valdez. You played,
Yes.
you toured with many other artists, but you were always choosing your own path. Like what made, because you could have worked with everybody you wanted to, but you chose to start your own project, your own group. What made you decide that?
I don't know. I think that I got many ideas in my head, and I love the weather here, the ladies, and I love the way people play the music, the Cuban music, and I say, wow, if I move to another country, maybe I don't find the same musician, the same weather, and maybe not the same women's. But nobody knows. But I choose this country because I love it, and it is a very nice place to create music.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then you've written. I mean, you have, how many albums do you have now with
Klimax, maybe 10 or something.
10?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And you write most of the music, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's a great thing. I mean, for a drummer, and I mean, people should be encouraged to write their own music as much as they can. Otherwise, you're always just accompanying people. But it's not. But it's a talent one has to develop, right? But you have you grew up with this environment that pushed you, and so you have your own voice and your own style also. I mean, when you're playing, I mean, you're playing right-handed, you're playing left-handed, You're playing, take the music apart, and you're doing things that are not customary. You're pushing the envelope all the time. What's going on in your mind, and why are you doing that?
I think it is because I got many influence that started with my parents in my house, listening to the biggest artists of the 50s and 60s in the States, in Brazil, in France. I grew up listening Michel Legrand, the Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
Okay.
Okay, and but also listen the Brazilian music was very beautiful and nice and lovely album of Astro Gilberto.
Oh wow. Yes.
Uh, I I fall in love of bossa nova
Okay.
and 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 the rest of the artists the better in Cuba. I receive it every day, in any hour, in any time. And after that, when the Cuban radio started to put some music that I don't like it, because in the 60s, the Cuban radio started to put a lot of music of the Spanish music, Spanish pop music.
Okay.
You know, a group like Los Bravos, Mocedades, eh, Fórmula, Fórmula Quinta,
Okay.
okay, and many others. I say I don't like very much that music, maybe for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, but no more, no more. And I discovered that here I live very near from this place, near the sea, the north part of the Havana city. We listen perfectly some radio station from Florida,
Okay.
and namely WGBS. And I'm starting to listen that station, and uh, we listen perfectly in the morning till 6 or 7 p.m. And that was great because we listen everybody of the greatest artists in the world through that station.
Okay.
And in the evening was another radio station named WKY. I think it should be also from Florida. That they put it very good music. I grew up listening the best artists of the States, some of the Canada also, just because you know many artists from Canada uh, make a big success in the States.
Yeah.
And when the radio changed in Cuba and we received a song and we could pay for a new radio station with FM,
Okay.
you know, what the abanico, you know
The fan.
the-
Yeah.
yeah.
That fan, right?
They just put it better because you listen it better the music,
Right. Right.
and we started to listen in some jazz stations from Florida also, salsa station, pop station, many things, you know, and that was a very good information. And some other bands who started to travel outside Cuba, they bring in some cassettes, you know, and they give the people to put it, everybody copy
Right.
the same
Yeah, yeah,
cassette
of course.
many
Yeah.
times, and that's the way that we listen in Chick Corea or Weather Report, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
You
sure.
know,
And that obviously, I mean, a lot of people think that, you know, each country has their own music and stuff, but everybody's always influencing everybody else. Of course, Cuban musicians influenced the world all the time, but has the world influenced Cuban
Sure,
music?
definitely.
And it's always an evolution, right? I mean,
Sure.
I hear it all the time, and I've been coming here for a long time.
Sure, sure.
And it's interesting to see, for example, when you started the festival and promoting not just the level of the students, but also the interest in Cuban music in a general sense, which was really nice. And also there's a competition that you started that we've been part of, and people would compete. The students would compete in the 5 categories: drums, conga, timbales, bongo, and bata.
Yes.
And then give away the instruments. And of course, in the beginning, there were no instruments in Cuba to give. So
Yes. Yes.
that's where we came in, and we said, okay, well, we'll be part of that. We'll bring instruments, help out, and give the instruments. So we started this whole interest, because for us it was interesting to build a cultural bridge.
Sure.
For us, I mean, especially someone like myself and the people who we work with, are saying, it's crazy that they don't have the instruments. So let's see how we can be. These are our brothers, our musician friends. Let's see how can we be helpful to be kind of on the same page, because it's incredible the level of musicians.
Sure.
I mean, yourself and then Changuito and all of these guys that we've been listening to, and Changuito when they helped develop the whole songo thing, and then when everybody's listening to you guys, and especially Changuito had a big effect on everybody.
Sure.
And here he is, he's still the Grand Master, and when we had him at COSA in the United States, I remember years ago, and that was very complicated to arrange, because we had to arrange 2 visas.
Wow.
Because for him to come to the United States was not possible direct, so we had to have a visa for Canada.
Wow.
And then a visa for the U.S. And then, because it was so close, it was easier that way. But one visa had to come before the other, so we had to coordinate. It was
Amazing. Yeah.
it was, but the fact that he came, then he was able to. We shared that with Berkeley, people out in California also. So he was able to get around a little bit, and they knew, of course, who he was. So there was a physical presence. So it's important for us to continue this bridge, as you're doing with the festival. People coming here from all over the world, and now the competition on the level, which continues and has continued every year. So that not just the level, because the level is here, but the interaction, the evolution of the music. But from your point of view, so we come here and we see what's going on. People get more instruction, more inspiration, but then also we bring what we bring, physically.
Sure.
What we bring.
Sure.
And I think that really helps. And one thing that I remember I said, well, if I'm going to play in Cuba, I'm not going to play what they play. It's not my blood, So I'm going to play other things. And I remember I said, oh, I'm going to play some djembe with the drums and stuff. And then as I come here, I see more people playing djembe here.
Sure.
I said, well, that's what happens.
Sure.
So they say, so that's how that works. They get instruments, other ideas, and the thing just keeps evolving. Or the frame drums, mixed with drums. So people then open their horizons a little bit better, right? I mean, as we're inspired by some things, they're inspired by other things.
Sure.
And then you're still becoming the vehicle of centralization of information and making sure it's getting out in a big way.
Sure.
And also, I mean, what you're doing with the records, experimenting. I mean, I heard you in your master class. The whole idea of whatever music it is, it could be played Cuban. And pushing that envelope, so people don't just get, this is Cuban, this is American, this is French, this is Italian, whatever. There is that element that's there in the roots, but that doesn't mean you can't transport that and mix it with something else without losing itself, but taking it forward. What was your thinking in that world?
It is mm, it's normal for me, you know. It is something that I do just because I don't know. I don't think about it. When I am make the arrangements and looking for ideas, that's happen ordinarily uh, in the normal way. Uh, I am not looking for something special, you know.
Okay.
I think that everything here, and if I discover the right one, I immediately I take it, you
Okay.
know, and put it in the paper. It had been very difficult for me because, as you mentioned before, the instrument that I used to make the arrangement, compose the song is the guitar, you
Okay.
know. But in Cuba, the guitar is not so popular as the piano.
Right.
The piano it is the stronger instrument for the Cuban dance music.
Right.
And I hate the piano. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Hit the piano.
The real things is that I love it, but I am very bad as a pianist.
Okay.
And wow, I do not born to play piano, you know. And when I am making the arrangement, I use the piano only to check some brass section chords, you know,
Right. Right.
some things that the notes are very close, you know, and I put it and check everything is right, the sound and the harmony, and some things that I can maybe play in one bar, you know. To tin tin con stop record stop. Yeah, and I made the things in that way with the computer. I started to work with the computer maybe 3 years ago. Uh, all the arrangement, all the work that I had been done since 3 years ago was with the same way that the greatest composer made it before. You know, one paper, one pen, and one instrument.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else? But I love the computer right now because you know people getting older, uh, and it is very important that the mind it is not so fast as the 20 years ago, and the computer helped me a lot
Yeah.
with the projects. Yes, it's better. And if something is wrong, you got the opportunity to check the day after. You check, and if you got to move a couple of notes, it's very simple.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I want to take you back a little bit to back in when we first met and when we started this project here in we did it in Coco.
Okay, sure.
So I remember I just visiting some things. What made I remember this was a very big deal um, over 20 years ago because a Canadian company started the very first Canadian hotel in Cuba, and they asked me if I would help them with some musical ideas. And when I had come here and I had met you and I saw what what great musicians, what great things could be done here, I said, oh, this is perfect. I said, let's start a Cuban festival of only the top Cuban artists, Klimax, Chucho Valdez, and syntheses. I remember we did this for a few years, and in the beginning, this was in Cayo Coco, so that was we organized, and they were fantastic because the Ministry of Culture, the Instituto de la Música, in collaboration with the people at the hotel, they said, yes, we do it. I said, it's going to be difficult because there are many things that were not done before here, so we have to kind of reinvent how's this going to work. And I remember one of the first things is they said, well, where the musicians going to stay? And I said, well, they stay at the hotel. like we all do.
Sure, sure.
And that was like a shock because here they said, no, Cuban musicians don't stay in the hotels. And then so we all went,
Why?
how does that work? So that was very strange for us, but what we were suggesting was very strange for them.
Yeah.
So then we did it, and they were agreed. We had a bus going back and forth
Sure.
twice a week during the festival. So all the musicians came there, and they stayed in the hotel. For us, it was normal, but a lot of people went upside down. They went crazy because this was never done before.
Sure, sure, man.
And we did that festival for a couple of years, and by the third year, I think there were other issues that came up, and so we had to. I mean, they decided also to sell the hotel, and so we kind of stopped that because it became just too difficult. It was too much against, too fast, and too much going on. And I mean, we're kind of telling the future, and it was kind of against the grain, and it wasn't used to it, but we broke all the rules. And at one point, I got a call from Havana with the Ministerio de no, Instituto de la Música and Mintour, and I had to explain what was going on. So I had to fly down to Havana, and there, one is defending, one is trying to understand what's going on. So we finally came to the festival idea, but they sold the hotel. And then you mentioned to me, you said, well, now that you're going to stop that one, that because they're selling the hotel and all these changes, you said, why don't you come to Havana and do your project in Havana and collaborate with La Fiesta del Tambor, with your, in honor of your uncle, who, of course, Guillermo Barreto, and he's the person who actually, many people don't know that, he subbed for Buddy Rich
Sure.
in Havana
Sure.
when Buddy was with, who was he touring with?
With Jimmy Dorsey.
Yeah, Dorsey, that's right. And one night,
Jimmy or Tommy, one or two brothers.
I don't remember which one.
I think it was Tommy Dorsey. I don't remember very well. One of two.
I think it was Tommy Dorsey.
Yeah,
I think it
so.
was Tommy Dorsey.
Tommy Dorsey.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And apparently, your uncle just went in and he played the show
Yeah.
cold. I mean, he had been watching, of course.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that was amazing back in those days, and they became good friends, I'm sure. Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a great picture of that in my
Yes.
book that you gave me, and I put in my book. I said, this has to be
Yeah.
seen. Buddy
Yeah.
Rich with Guillermo Barreto and that whole story.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be forgotten because that was a great thing they did. And then from then we continued our project here and bringing people to Havana and working with and watching this grow. I mean, we were doing to theaters concerts of 4,000 people, and everybody exchanging and learning more of the artists. All these people having not only the opportunity to perform for all of them, but for us to see them all in one place.
Yeah.
That was a fantastic thing. And of course that continues, and you're the engine behind that whole machine.
Sure.
And I mean, what what is the thing that pushes you the most, and what people like in your mind takes you, like, because when we talk about this, I mean, the whole idea behind this podcast, and we all have our story. I mean, why do we do things like, and you basically make decisions shaping your journey.
Three person, my mom, my father, and my uncle.
Okay.
Yeah. Each of them take a part in my life as musicians. My mom always teach me and teach my two brothers also. My brother and my sister. They don't like to study a lot of music, but she always teach us everything she could do. My uncle Guillermo, the same, but I got the inspiration of my father because he passed away when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
Coming from Canada
From Montreal?
from the Expo 67, yeah.
Expo 67,
from Montreal.
right.
and was very sad for the whole family. But uh, my mom showed show us all his music, everything he made, the records. She sang very well, my mom. Yeah, and if we if she don't have the record of any song, she sang the song for us. Yeah, it's very nice, and that was the motive, the real push to to become musicians, to become a composer, to become a better drummer. You know.
Right. And I mean, the one thing that you've really explored this open concept, this playing, but also pushing the timba
Sure.
style uh, to another degree. And the way you explained it the other day, the clave, some people don't always understand that the clave exists in everything, but how it relates to the different music is a different story. And how a drummer would play over that. And I mean, your ideas, concepts are fantastic, and I mean, it's nice that you're also teaching the young so that they don't come to you. You're actually going to them and say, "Take this." And
Sure.
I'm noticing that. What's pushing you to do that?
I don't know, man. Uh, I made many things just because happened. You know. Uh, it is something about the family, the real time that you are living in that moment, the your friends, the art and the music around you, many things. And I am thinking of many things right now, and uh, it is weird sometimes just because uh, some things happen just because I think this song starts in the sky to put the light on you, and it is possible to develop any idea, you know. But for me, it is important to pay attention to all the people around me, to my teachers in the school, to my friends who, in the time that I was trying to learn something that that was very funny sometimes because here about pop music, nobody teach you anything about harmony, you know. And I go to the places and I keep a very long time checking the left hand of all the guitarists, player,
Okay.
guitar players, and I pay attention and I say I check some kind of positions, you know, and I try to return to my house as soon as possible to check one or two positions, you know, with my guitar. I put it, and when that strings room I play it, I say, wow, this is great, you know.
Okay.
I put it the notes in the paper. I say, okay, if I move this position in that way, it is the same. It is easier than the piano.
Right.
And the piano is, it's don't work for me. This is perfect because you put it the this finger in that way and you move the same chords, you know.
Right. Right.
And you know that was very inspirational. It's the moment that you live in sometimes, and you grew up living some way of life that you are not thinking what pushed you in that very moment, you know. You are doing your work or your song or your arrangement or your way to play some rhythms, and you don't care anything about the rest of the world, you know. Music, 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 music. I also started to read because as a songwriter, it is very important to to read anything, you know.
Like
For
read
just for the
books.
lyrics, yeah, yeah, read books, just for the lyrics, and between the guitar, the books, and the drum set, that was my life for many years when I was young.
Okay. And you're still doing that.
No, I don't have time to play drums. I don't have time to read books, but I have time to make sometimes I'll make
Right.
arrangements. Yeah, that's I love it.
Yeah. And now you just recently recorded a new album.
Sure,
That's
very nice.
yes.
I'm very glad.
I heard one track that was beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What's the name of this album?
The
This
name
last
of
one?
the album is Mucho,
Mucho.
Mosh
Okay.
in English.
Much. Pero mucho en español. Yeah.
Mucho en
Beautiful.
español.
Beautiful. Yeah. Uh, um, what would you consider, or what would you suggest to an up and coming drummer from Cuba? Two different questions. To a drummer, a musician coming up from Cuba, and a musician coming up and coming outside of Cuba, because you've traveled quite a bit yourself. Like, what would you suggest to them as far as making an impact on the world? Because you have made a big impact in the music in general. So, what would you give advice to those two different people?
I think people should understand what they want to do, what they want to be. It is very important to understand if you think that you can be composer or you wanna be, why not? You know, then you got to figure out the way to do that. Different ways, you can find different ways, but
Right.
you got to fight for. In the drum set, it is the same. I think the drummers should play any style, the great drummers, as much different style of the music you can play, you will be a better drummer
Right.
and you will be a better musician. But if you know that you are very good as a jazz player in the drums and you want to play also Cuban music, you the only the only thing that you need to do is check the the internet and come to Cuba. It's very easy. Come to Cuba, Fiesta de Tambor. It is very easy, man. Just because it is the real way to understand many things that sometimes you can't find on books or
Sure.
on videos. But mm, the the way of think of each person, it is as like a mark in the brain to develop any idea the people have in, in mind. Just just need you. The only thing that you need to know is what do you want. If you want to be an arrangement, okay. It is very good schools around the world to make arrangements, but you got to study for yourself many things, to listen a lot of music
Yeah.
about the difference, about jazz, Brazilian, uh, African music, Cuban, funk, whatever. I love, by example, I love listening gospel music. I love it because the harmonies, the way the drummer playing the gospel music, you say, wow. But I have no time to study that way right now. But if I were 25 years younger, I become a gospel drummer also, just because I love it.
Right, right, right. Well, we just add on another 25. Add, adicionar otro 25.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
it is very difficult right now because
Yes.
to compose and arrange take me a lot of time to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
But I love it. I am receiving some info about harmonies of the gospel music. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
very
Well, I
nice.
mean, it's all interesting, and the nice thing about being music, I mean, it is the international language or universal language. So anybody who is playing music or playing rhythm, especially, everybody on the planet understands. So this is, I mean, this is an easy subject to talk about with anybody who is in the music world, and even if they're not, when they're listening, they understand it. You don't have to explain anything because music is that language. It just speaks to your brain,
Sure,
and then we're fortunate to be able to be the makers
sure.
of those, not just the participants and the listeners. We're also on the other side creating that, and we can go all over the world and play it, and also be listening to it from as a listener of their music, and it's a language we understand, right? And it's amazing, and those of us who are fortunate enough to come to Cuba often and see what the similarities are and what is going on here and what is going on in a different place. It's always best to go to the roots, and then you see it, and then that's the ideal. You go to India, you go to China, you go to Africa, Cuba, Brazil, and then mix it with what you're doing. Then we create, and we still speak. I mean, there are 7 notes,
Sure,
right? And
sure.
all of these rhythms, and it's just a language. It's amazing. It's amazing what you've done. It's,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So thank you so much,
No, it's a pleasure always.
Piloto. Como se dice en español, a continuar.
Sí, tenemos que continuar.
Que
Te digo.
continuar.
Un placer.